Good evening, everyone. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. Do we have a show for you tonight? We have the weed moms represented. Do you know who they are? Yeah. We have the Signal chat issue. There's so much to get to, and we'll get through all of it together. But first, let's chat. That's the focus of tonight's angle.
Senate Republicans have said that they have formally asked the administration for an Inspector General report on the Signal issue. Will you agree to that?
It doesn't bother me. I don't know. I want to find if there's any mistake or if a Signal doesn't work.
As for the question of who's responsible, the president said this.
Successful that night.
His position over the Signal.
Hegseth is doing a great job. He had nothing to do with this. Hegseth. How do you bring Hegseth into it? He had nothing to do. Look, it's all a witch hunt. Mike he took responsibility for it.
Well, there's lots of buzz across all networks and the internet about the Angle's interview last night with the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz.
He's obviously doing cleanup for all of this.
There's not a single adult in the crowd who will actually take responsibility for what happened.
The main thing to do is admit that it was a screw-up on somebody's part.
You know what everybody would love? We made a mistake.
I don't think they're telling the truth, and it doesn't pass the smell test. There is no way in hell that that's not classified information.
Okay, let's chat. No doubt including Goldberg in these communications was a screw-up. We said that last night. It's an unforced error and a mislabeled contact added to a high-level chat, which, of course, gave the anti-Trump henchmen on the left an opening. And that means the White House is forced to defend the accusations of mishandling of war plans and classified info.
Nobody's texting war plans. Team update is to provide updates in real time. General updates in real time, keep everybody informed. That's what I did.
This thing was set up for purposes of coordinating how everyone was going to call. When these things happen, I need to call foreign ministers, especially of our close allies. We need to notify members of Congress. Obviously, someone made a mistake.
I would characterize this messaging thread as a policy discussion, a sensitive policy discussion, surely, amongst high-level cabinet officials and senior staff.
Well, Caroline's right, and I'm sure in retrospect they all wish they had been on a secure White House line or just in the Situation Room. And it's also fair to say that Republicans would express outrage if the shoe were on the other foot with the same set of facts. But let's also remember the Democrat wall of support for Hillary Clinton's use of a private, unsecure server for official government emails and attachments. Yeah, I remember all of that. As the AP noted at the time, 47 emails contained CIA information related to specific agency personnel or agency matters, and that the server was vulnerable to hacking by foreign adversaries. Nevertheless, her party rallied to her defense. And to this day, it maintains she did nothing wrong. Of course, in her own act of glaring hypocrisy, Hillary weighed in an exclusive interview with the esteemed foreign policy magazine, Glamour. As if that woman has a scintilla of credibility on any issue related to national security. Exactly what is her list of successes? From Haiti to Benghazi, she was a total disaster. But the reality of the situation here, I think, actually is fairly straightforward. When you look at these texts in their entirety, and of course more were released today, they show a serious and thoughtful group of advisors trying to carry out the clear wishes of the duly elected and totally competent commander-in-chief. Sure, we're going to find out again who put the Trump-hating Goldberg on the chat chain and why, but it's abundantly clear that none of this put national security at risk. And there was no risk to our troops, and the entire world is safer because of the actions that our troops took. Now, some of us are actually happier about that. Others are rooting for the United States to fail. What's also clear, rather than getting off the text chain immediately and contacting the administration through back channels, which would have been the proper and appropriate thing to do, the Atlantic editor held the information. And what did he do? He dumped it right before the important hearing of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. Now, Goldberg obviously wanted to do as much damage to the Trump administration as possible for maximum impact. The fact is, the Atlantic views MAGA and Trump as the real villains of the world, much worse than the CCP, much worse than Hamas. What the media will not and cannot address is that the mission to destroy key Houthi targets was itself a huge success. So I think we should judge a policy by its outcome, not by an unintended error in transmission. And it's an error, by the way, that all parties have learned from. But think about the incompetence we dealt with for 4 long years of Joe Biden. Now, we probably had Generals Milley and Lloyd Austin in a lead-walled skiff discussing how they were going to pull our troops out of Afghanistan. But the results would, they were still disastrous, right? And they were deadly. And I'll say this, at least Hegseth was on this chat and an active participant. I mean, who can forget when Biden's Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, was missing from the job for several days, and apparently no one at the Biden White House even noticed. That's how important he was to decision-making. So you want to talk about a compromised foreign policy? Let's chat. Joe Biden was our commander-in-chief, and the press, including Goldberg's publication, ignored obvious and blatant concerns about his mental competence, his mental state, for years, and they vilified those of us who brought up those concerns. And you want to talk about a chaotic and dangerous foreign policy? The Russian invasion of Ukraine itself. Hundreds of thousands of dead. Russia, obviously the aggressor here, but it only happened because of Team Biden's stupidity. You want to talk about putting Americans in harm's way? And the ultimate insult to Americans in uniform? Yeah, Biden looking at his watch at Dover during the dignified transfer. The truth is, the globalists like Goldberg and his compatriots have gotten almost everything wrong about U.S. foreign policy over the past 30 years. The same people who said a rising China was a good thing and no threat to the United States are the same people who promised us that Ukraine's summer offensive would turn the tide against Russia. So it doesn't matter how successful Trump's foreign policy is. It doesn't matter. Goldberg and others like him will continue to long for the glorious days of Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden when America was getting weaker as China was getting stronger. The truth is, most feigning outrage over this Signal chat are really outraged that under Trump, America is now acting in her own interest. Their idea of a successful Republican is Liz Cheney and Mitt Romney, maybe throw them all together. And now that it's becoming increasingly obvious that the voters have chosen the America First approach to domestic and foreign policy, I mean, the old guard, the old elites, they're becoming angrier and more desperate by the day. These people helped the Biden administration cover up everything from the Biden Ukraine and China grift to Biden's own declining mental state. I will never forgive them for that. And by the way, that was all going on as our enemies were getting stronger and laughing at us and plotting against us. And we haven't gotten into what happened at the border. How many foreign terrorists crossed our border? I don't remember long Atlantic articles about that. And we're supposed to take any of these people huffing and puffing today seriously? I was thinking about this. I've been in Washington a long time. This is all a sad repeat of what Republicans have been dealing with since around 1987. Yeah, I worked in the Reagan administration in 1987. From the Bork hearings to Iran-Contra to the Russian collusion to the myriad anti-Trump hoaxes, Charlottesville, January 6th, it's one long slash and burn campaign. Democrats didn't really care about any of the underlying issues involving any of those stories. They cared about gaining a political advantage. So what we're really seeing play out here is the last gasps of the Permanent War Caucus that took one of the richest and freest countries in the world and almost destroyed it. Until, that is, Trump pulled off the biggest comeback of all time. And tonight, he's still going strong. And it's still driving the people who repeatedly wrote his political obituary mad. And that's the angle.
The Doge chainsaw has been busy. 130 billion sawed off so far. But my favorite cut, 600 grand to stop trans boys from getting pregnant. Thank God. And 150 grand for climate change activities in Peru. That sounds a lot like cover for paying off a politician's Peruvian mistress. Back on planet Earth, Trump has bigger targets.
Would you be interested in defunding and taking away taxpayer dollars to NPR and PBS?
Well, I would love to do that. I think it's very unfair. It's been very biased, the whole group. I mean, a whole group of them.
As luck would have it, the House DOJ committee welcomed the presidents of NPR and PBS for a hearing today.
You called him a deranged racist and sociopath. You posted on X that America is addicted to white supremacy. It's appalling. You've publicly chastised using the phrase boy and girl. The federal funding that your outlet receives comes from all American taxpayer dollars, not just from your viewers who support such statements as these.
We spend $500 million a year for these stations to call half the country illiterate Nazis. Why are taxpayers funding channels for snobby women with dirty tote bags whose liberal dogs bite me while I'm hiking? I don't know. You turn on the radio or Sirius or Spotify, there's thousands of stations. Why are we funding the one station that shows drag queens to kids?
NPR and PBS have increasingly become radical left-wing echo chambers for a narrow audience of mostly wealthy, white, urban liberals and progressives who generally look down on and judge rural America. PBS News is not just left-leaning, but it is actively uses taxpayer funds to push some of the most radical left positions, like featuring a drag queen on the show Let's Learn.
No wonder all these kids think they're trans. They've grown up on Drag Queen Story Hour.
I wrote this book because I wanted everyone to get to experience the magic of drag and to get a little practice shaking their hips or shimmying their shoulders to know how we can feel fabulous inside of our own bodies.
Shaking your hips? Why is a guy wearing makeup and a dress telling kids to shimmy, shimmy, shake? And why are we paying for it? Democrats are cool with it. They treated the whole hearing like a joke.
Is Elmo now, or has he ever been, a member of the Communist Party of the United States? A yes or no?
No.
Are Bert and Ernie part of an extreme homosexual agenda?
No.
If we're going to get rid of any puppeteers, we should get rid of the one that's actually controlling Donald Trump. Fire Elon Musk and save Elmo.
No one's saying Bert and Ernie are gay commies. We're saying the drag queen might be. I had my producers check to see if Bert and Ernie were gay. Here's what we found. A former Sesame Street writer says he wrote Bert and Ernie as a gay couple, but Sesame Street swears they're just roommates. Anyway, Sesame Street in Iraq got Doge, but we're still paying for it here. We're also paying for this. Here's a straight news show on PBS, or not so straight.
First, there's two sexes, is what they say. We know for a fact that there's three because there's intersex, and that's someone that's been born with some form of both. And so if we know that there's now three, then if you try to say there's black and white, then we know that there's another form of gray. And it's different shades from charcoal to light gray. And so if we know for a fact that there's at least three genders and sexes, then we have to start listening and go from there.
Why'd I pay for that? If CNN wants to say that, let them. It's their money. But don't do that with my money. NPR isn't doing much better. The CEO, Catherine Marr, under oath, insists her newsroom isn't biased. And they follow the highest journalistic standards.
Is NPR biased?
Congressman, I have never seen any instance of political bias determining editorial decisions, no.
In the D.C. area, editorial positions at NPR, he said he found 87 registered Democrats, 0 Republicans. Is that accurate?
We do not track the numbers or the voter registration.
87 to 0, and you're not biased?
I think that is concerning if those numbers are accurate.
You want to see bias in action? Look at what came out of the mouth of the CEO.
Do you believe that America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You tweeted that in reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read the case for reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020.
This woman hires 87 Democrats and 0 Republicans and says America's racist and she wants reparations. But in no way is she biased. Anyway, all that stuff she said, she forgot. She's only 41, not past her prime, Don Lemon, but she forgot. She forgot and she evolved. She's forgetting and evolving at the same time. Did the head of NPR just play the dumb blonde card? Because I find that offensive. She also played the I was a different person back then card. Can you do that from 4 years ago? I mean, you could do that with something you said in college, but this was 4 years ago. Before she ran NPR, Kathy ran Wikipedia. And if you Wikipedia Jesse Waters, actually don't. It's not nice. Kathy is not about telling the truth.
For our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth might not be the right place to start. In fact, our reverence for the truth might be a distraction that's getting in the way of finding common ground and getting things done. We all have different truths. They're based on things like where we come from, how we were raised, and how other people perceive us.
Yeah, truth can be distracting, like when you're trying to stage a coup or push a hoax. I agree. The truth can get in the way of getting things done. If you're a political animal, but not if you're reporting the news. Truth should be here. NPR takes our money and buries the truth.
How many times did y'all interview Adam Schiff about the Russia collusion?
I'm sorry, I don't have that number.
It was 25 times. You know how many times NPR interviewed Chairman of this committee, Oversight Committee, Jamie Comer, about the Biden impeachment inquiry or the Hunter Biden tax evasion and illicit business dealings of the Biden family?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
I believe that's 0, so it's 25-0. For 6 months, there was an analysis done on PBS's NewsHour from June to November of 2023, where they found that far right that term was used 162 times, and far left was only used 6 times. Do you find that troubling?
I don't know the study that you're referring to, and I'd be very interested in seeing it.
Adam Schiff had no evidence of Russia collusion, and he was on NPR every day. And they never even said, show me what you got, Adam. Comer had bank records, photos, texts of the Biden clan shaking down foreign countries. It was so bad, Biden had to pardon his son to keep him out of prison. But NPR saw what Comer had and wouldn't book him.
October 2020, the New York Post had the Hunter Biden laptop story, and one of those editors, I guess one of those 87 Democrat editors, said this: we don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories. We don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' times on stories that are just pure distractions. Was that a pure distraction story?
Our current editorial leadership believes that that was a mistake, as do I.
Yeah, the whole country knows that was a mistake. Definitely impacted the election.
NPR makes the same mistakes in the same direction again and again. That's when you know it's not a mistake. The government can't fund reporters who are trying to overthrow this government. We have enough propaganda channels. Why should taxpayers be on the hook for this one? I like Sesame Street. I grew up on it. I was Oscar the Grouch for Halloween. And my daughter Gigi loves Elmo. But around 99% of PBS and NPR's money comes from private donations. So why can't these donors pony up 1% more? Do they really need taxpayer money if they have billions pouring in from liberal benefactors? The answer is, of course not. But Democrats don't want to save any taxpayer money. They just want to run against Musk in the midterms.
It is the mindset of the Trump administration. And that is that this government is to be run for a handful of billionaires and people with power. And everyone else can just eat dirt. We're feeling it everywhere that Elon Musk goes with his magic chainsaw to fire people, to do it in ugly ways, to undermine the kind of obligations we have passed here in Congress.
Democrats are fighting to fund Drag Queen Story Hour, mysterious Amazonian women, pregnancy prevention for boys, but don't forget about DEI tomato seeds.
Behind a door at USDA, we found a whole box of these seeds. These are specific tomato seeds that are for growing diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility at USDA. I mean, look at these. If you can be anything, be inclusive at USDA.
From the radical left, they're now clinging to their one piece of manna from heaven, a story about a high-level White House group chat on the encrypted messaging app called Signal, which is a complete joke coming from the very people who approve the app, the use of the app, and intentionally leak materials to journalists all the time. By the way, let me warn Democrats, there is information that will be coming your way very soon to show what utter, complete, phony hypocrites that you are. Just stay tuned. We're on the case. But we get it. Our far left, Trump-hating journalist Jeffrey Goldberg was somehow accidentally included on the group chat as cabinet-level officials discussed possible military strikes in Yemen. But let's be very clear. There was no classified material revealed in those texts. Caroline Leavitt made the proper distinction. There is a difference between, quote, sensitive policy discussions and, quote, classified information. Did the administration want Jeffrey Goldberg included on that high-level group chat? Of course not. It was an unfortunate, inadvertent, one-off error to accidentally include a reporter on that text chain. But as reported, steps have already been taken to prevent this from ever happening in the future. But you got to put things into perspective. The mission in Yemen was operationally a complete success. It can't get any more successful. And as President Trump has been pointing out, the left's current bout of hysteria is ridiculous. It's hypocritical. It's dishonest. In other words, just a typical day for Democrats. Take a look.
I think it's all a witch hunt, that's all. I think it's a witch hunt. I wasn't involved with it. I wasn't there. But I can tell you the result is unbelievable because the Houthis are looking to do something. They want to know, how do we stop? Can we have peace? The Houthis want peace because they're getting the hell knocked out of them. It's been very, very strong. The Houthis are dying for peace. They don't want this. And they're bad. Look, they were knocking ships out of the ocean. You know, we had in the Suez Canal, they only have about 20% of the ships going through. They have to go through a different way, which takes weeks of travel. And that really affects commerce. But the Houthis have been hit hard, and they want to negotiate peace.
Why focus on the successful military operation when you can trash Donald Trump and people that work for him? President Trump is right. The Democratic Party, they're at it again with the legacy media, state-run media's help, of course. On X, the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, he described it this way. It's actually perfect. So let me get this straight. The Atlantic released the so-called war plans, and those plans include no names, no targets, no locations, no units, no routes, no sources, no methods, no classified information. Those are some really, wow, bleep war plans. Hegseth continued, we will continue to do our job while the media does what it does best, peddle hoaxes. And as per usual, like most other Democratic smears, this current obsession ultimately involved Russia and Vladimir Putin. Look at the headline from CBS, quote, as top Trump aides sent text on Signal, flight data shows a member of the group chat was in Russia. President Trump's Ukraine and Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, who's been on this program many times, friend of the program, he was in Russia negotiating peace with Vladimir Putin. But guess what? He left his phone at home. He brought a burner phone, as was given to him by the government. He didn't have access to the Signal group chat. Whoopsie-daisy. They got it wrong yet again, another fake, phony controversy. But some on the left are also taking this as an opportunity to go after everybody in the administration. In the case of Witkoff, his job as a negotiator, even taking his comments about Hamas completely, utterly out of context. Here is what Steve Witkoff actually said. Take a look.
I thought we had a deal, an acceptable deal. I even thought we had an approval from Hamas. Maybe that's just me getting duped. But I thought we were there, And evidently we weren't. So this is on Hamas. The United States stands with the state of Israel. There's just, that's a 100% commitment. And we've expressed that. Would we be amenable to a reach out from Hamas? Of course we would be. No different than in the Russian conflict. We want to end the killing. But we need to be clear who the aggressor is here, and that is Hamas.
And then he went on to describe Hamas in another interview as nothing but a bunch of murdering terrorist thugs. Interesting how the media took that part out of it and he slammed Hamas as a group of murdering terrorists. Forget that part. And if in the middle of trying to negotiate peace in Europe and the Middle East, if God forbid Steve Witkoff doesn't scream at them, you're a murderer, you're a Nazi, you're a killer, well, they think he's not negotiating. Happens to be a great negotiator. And if he ever did something that stupid, there would be no negotiation and there'd never be a negotiated settlement. How dumb are some of these people? You go into a negotiation, call them you're a Nazi, you're a murderer, you're a thug. Joe Biden never talked peace with Putin one time. Now, he called him a lot of names. Putin didn't care. He still went into Ukraine. Joe spent hundreds of billions of your dollars. And guess what? Donald Trump is working for peace. Steve Witkoff is working hard on a peace plan and making more progress in a few short weeks than anyone in the Biden White House achieved in 4 long years. So make no mistake, the hysteria on the left is just feigned. It is phony moral outrage. They don't really care about this issue. If they did, they would have screamed bloody murder about the open borders that allowed in, terrorists, murderers, rapists, gang members, cartel members, all the people that Donald Trump is trying to kick out, that they're trying to protect and allow to stay in. This isn't Watergate. This isn't Goldberggate. It's certainly not Abbey-gate. And it doesn't even begin to rise to the security risks presented by a president in full cognitive decline, and everybody knew it. And yet the legacy media mob, the Democratic Party, were not just unconcerned with the president's mental state because they knew what it was. They just lied about it for years in an effort to cover it up. Shall we remind you? Let's take a look.
Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
President Biden has a photographic memory.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
Joe Biden doesn't have any concerns about his mental fitness, and nor do I. I've spent an incredible amount of time with Joe Biden. That's just the fade that the other side is pushing.
He's fine. All this right-wing propaganda that his mental acuity has declined is wrong.
I think you all have called this the cheap fakes video, and that's exactly what they are. They are cheap fakes video. They are done in bad faith.
It's very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable
You are
to
no
watch somebody on stage
That's so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter.
Mocking his stutter? No, it was obvious for anybody with eyes to see. He was in a steep cognitive decline, which is a clear and present danger to the country, which, as commander-in-chief, is a threat to our nation, which they all knew about and they all lied about. The same people also lied about the biggest preventable national security crisis in the history of our country. That is Joe's wide open borders. Take a look.
Our efforts to secure the border, southern border, is working.
It is my testimony that the border is secure.
No doubt about it. Our border is secure.
Sounds to most folks like a crisis. Well, look, it's way down now. We've now gotten control.
Precisely that. The border is closed. Nor could I have been clearer and continue to be so, which is the border is closed.
You're confident this border is secure?
We have a secure border in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration.
We agree that the border is secure.
And now we're supposed to believe that those very people and the people in the state-run legacy media mob actually care about national security. For 4 long years, they lied, they covered up Biden's border crisis or challenged these lies. They never challenged anything. But now they want you to believe that their nonstop hysteria about an inadvertent, one-off text exchange surrounding a successful strike in Yemen without any details, without it being, top secret, is somehow genuine. In reality, just another baseless political smear. If it wasn't so serious, it actually is funny. It's entertaining how pathetic they are from a party that is barely clinging to relevance at this point, living very comfortably in their 20% approval range. And as per usual, this was followed by a lawsuit, a left-wing group named American Oversight, and now suing Trump officials for allegedly violating the Federal Records Act. And wouldn't you know it? What a piece of good luck. The very same Obama-appointed judge who tried to block Trump's deportation flights to El Salvador midair, turn around and come back, will also oversee this lawsuit.
This messaging mess was like the aftermath of chugging prune juice on Taco Tuesday. The results are not great, but not surprising either. Since January 20th, so many great things have happened so fast. The border's closed, fugitives have been caught, egg and gas prices have plummeted, and Rosie O'Donnell moved to Ireland. It's killing the media, who hate all of it because Trump's doing it all. They're not used to a president who moves with such speed. They got spoiled by 4 years of a man who only left skid marks on his underwear. Whoa. So now they act like they really are dramacrats, each one elbowing out the other for the spotlight. Meanwhile, we have bigger fish to fry. And when you have real goals, ones you decide to act on, you're going to make some mistakes, whether it's rescuing astronauts in space, running for public office, or delivering a baby at a restaurant because you told your date you were in medical school. Because there are goals and ideals. A goal is what you set out to achieve. The ideal is the path and methods to achieve it. Is your goal to kill terrorists? Great. The ideal is to do it cleanly and decisively. But it's called an ideal because perfection's unattainable. But we accept that risk. That's how winners live their lives. You don't play, you don't win. Getting things done is risky. But you can avoid that risk by doing nothing, and that's not Trump at all. And Americans are okay with it, right, Harry?
I think sometimes it's important to do a little bit of reality check and take a little different spin at the numbers. I'm going to do that right here because all we talk about is how unpopular Donald Trump is. But in reality, he's basically more popular than he was at any point in term number one, and more popular than he was when he won election back in November of 2024. How about NBC News? 44%. That's the highest since 2004. Wow. The bottom line is the percentage of Americans who say we're on the right track is through the roof.
Yes. No wonder the media is feasting on the Signal story like it's a gazelle carcass at The View. What's left for them when everyone loves Trump's aims? You go after the process. Oh, it's too fast. It's too sloppy. It's like they're describing my dream date with John Stamos. But not with old Joe. There were thousands of errors Biden didn't make as he presided over one giant deliberate act of negligence. It was all Joe could do to get out of bed in the morning. If this guy put his shoes on the right feet 2 days in a row, the legacy media would have orgasms. I wonder if it's something that should have been done by Sleepy Joe Biden.
This is something that should have been done by Sleepy Joe Biden, but he was asleep at the wheel other than when it came to stealing money, of course.
Amen. Meanwhile, the same outraged media you see now were the very same who covered up Joe's mental decline. Biden was an expert at not doing things. He didn't close the border, which was too much to ask from a guy who refused to do the same thing with his bathrobe. He didn't reduce crime or inflation. Hell, he increased both. He didn't get creepy men out of women's locker rooms. Instead, he appointed them to high office. Perhaps we were lucky he ignored so many problems. I mean, look at the damage they did while doing absolutely nothing. Can you imagine what the country would look like if they actually tried? Instead of capturing terrorists or deporting gangs, Joe just shrugged his bony shoulders and said, well, what can you do? Before collapsing on the beach 8 hours a day. So for the next 4 years, you're going to hear about mistakes because Trump's aims are so dead on. All the angry media has left is process. But you know better. We dig a leader with great aim who'll take a risk on America's behalf, not a guy whose aim failed the country, but also the toilet. Let's This Brooke doesn't babble when fighting the radical rabble. Human rights lawyer Brooke Goldstein. He used to do crack. Now he looks like someone who used to do crack. Comedian Rich Voss. She's toured with the band and read Ayn Rand. Host of the Kennedy Saves the World podcast, Kennedy. And like a game of bridge, old ladies like to do them once a week with friends. New York Times bestselling author, comedian, and former NWA world champion Tyrus. Brooke, I made a decision today. I gave this story 24 hours, and I said, that's all you deserve. This is all you deserve from a media that spent 4 years covering up incompetence and lack of security to then lecture us that there's a breach in security and there's incompetence. Them.
Yeah, well said, Greg, well said. But we both know that this is going to drag on and on, okay?
Yes.
Because that's all they have, like you said in your intro. Obviously, this is not good. Is it being blown out of proportion? Absolutely. Is this an example of a narcissistic journalist putting himself at the center of the story? Absolutely, because there would be no security breach if he had done the right thing. If you see yourself, you're on the wrong thread, you should point itself out, you should flag it, and take yourself off. And he claims to care about national security, but instead, he puts himself at the center of the story, and he blows it out of proportion and risks our national security by publishing the thread. To me, it is so obvious that it's a diversion from what we all have to be doing, which is thanking President Trump for making the Middle East more peaceful and safer. We're not able to have any of our shipping ships through the Suez Canal or the Red Sea for over 2 years. That is unacceptable. It is unacceptable that the Houthis were taken off the terror list. Trump carried out an excellent attack, carried out the mission to perfection, and that's what we should be talking about right now.
It's funny, Rich, what you're wearing. Have you ever used the Signal app to chat with your bookie?
No, here's the thing. I'm on the run right now. Doesn't Biden look like Fire Marshal Bill in that picture? So I don't like the group chats, any of that, because I'm old. I don't want to apologize to more than one person.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I always screw up. I, by accident, sent my mom nude pictures. Okay? Thankfully, she's been dead for 10 years, so she didn't get them.
Both were stiff.
Ew.
So,
Jesus, Greg.
Wait, did I embarrass you?
Which is hard to do as long as I've been on this show, but calling him stiff and his mama stiff is fighting words where I'm from, so I'm just... I'm just saying. Talking about my mama, I gotta cut you. So
but it's a lie. I'm not stiff.
Kennedy, this is a family show. I wanted to remind you.
And I'm someone's mom, and I can say Rich is not stiff. I checked in the green room. Part of the HR protocol.
How can we even? Okay, let's even take Goldberg. He's the boy who cried wolf. 2 hoaxes: the Russian hoax, the losers hoax about Trump saying. So why do we have to listen to any of these people?
Because he's desperate for clicks. Like, the only thing he is doing here is trying to raise the profile of The Atlantic, and he thinks, I was talking to my domestic partner today.
Oh,
who said,
what's her name?
Patty, thank you. So Patty and I were talking. It's a male, but my brother says that whenever I say domestic partner, I sound like a lesbian, which is fine. I'm an ally and I don't judge.
And those are lesbian glasses, by the way.
Do you know how many times a week I get called sir?
Yes.
At this point, I've just given up. Like, if I don't get misgendered,
I can't
feel
tell
offended.
if you look like Rachel Maddow or Chris Hayes or their bastard love child.
That actually would make everyone soft just thinking about the junior.
Yep.
What were you saying?
What the hell were we talking about?
I don't know.
I was hoping it was Goldberg the wrestler.
Yes.
I was hoping it was Jeffrey Toobin.
Yes.
At least it would make the story a little bit more exciting. But Chris Hayes is such a doughy knob.
Yeah.
And for him saying, this is the greatest security breach of our lifetime. It's like, what? You don't remember Afghanistan?
Yeah.
Like you don't remember 9/11?
Yeah.
That is so disingenuous.
No,
like he needs Ozempic and a brain transplant.
Yes. Tyrus, when you look at that montage, you realize that they're desperate and they're pathetic, and we get it. But well, God, I'm trying to cut back on the F words.
I just can't. Yeah, you know. I'm with you. I'm with you. Like they. Man, you know, like, what? He's so. Is it Goldberg? Is it?
Yeah, Goldberg.
That's the one.
He's so stupid.
Yeah.
Like you had an inside track. You could have been the greatest war correspondent. Ever.
Yes.
Just shut up. Wait till it's over. Give critiques. Like he had an inside track.
Yes.
He was literally To Catch a Republican.
Yeah.
He had the TV show set up, and he jumped in on the wrong. It's like you set up the whole Catch a Predator. The guy comes in like, sir, what are you doing? Are you here to see the 13-year-old boy? No, I'm his father. I live here. All right, get the camera crew in the van. Let's go. Let's go, guys. He blew his wad on a no story. The only thing that would make that stuff better was at the end, Pete started asking everyone where they're going to eat lunch. You know, like, but I just wonder, maybe it'll be by like next Monday when they're still having panels over this, when they decide that this was worse than January 6th.
Yes.
It's like like that will be their next move. But like, yeah, this, again, Will Cain on the Will Cain Show destroyed them today.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.